Hello, peeps. This is Reda here with my colleague and longtime friend, Mok. Back here for another edition of our Mok and Reda podcast. But we might want to change that name. How are
I think
you?
we should. I'm good, man. How are you? It's been a
Yeah,
whole week.
yeah. I know. I'm good. I'm good. Thanks. Um, there is something I wanted to talk to you about, right?
Tell
Because
me.
it falls within our, I think, within our age group. And I
Oh,
was just thinking about it the other day. Now, the origin of the word sex tape, right?
ah,
And I was thinking about it. I was like, sex tape. Why is it called a sex tape, right? We don't use tapes anymore. You
no,
know, it's
no.
it's it's all like
Sex
digital,
files. No,
right?
that's,
There isn't
yeah.
even a sex DVD. It's a sex tape,
No,
right?
yeah.
And I thought about it, and I think, and this is my theory, but again, maybe you know more. The first sex tape, or the first proper sex tape, was the Pamela Anderson one, which
Yeah.
I've seen when I
The
was
first
when I
part
was a
is like,
teenager.
I love how you say probably you know more. Like, it's just assumed that Mark definitely watches more porn than I do.
Well, that's a debatable, but you know,
But yeah, I'd say that was probably the first one I can remember, the Tommy Lee one. And weirdly, again, I'm pretty sure that it was DVDs back then. It was just that not everyone had a DVD player at home.
I don't think there were DVDs. I think it was a tape VHS, and I remember it in every store.
See, I don't remember it in
Hmm.
stores. I remember it like on the internet. That's why I'm thinking if the internet was in Cyprus, we're talking about as well, if the internet was there, I'm pretty sure DVDs sort of came around that time.
Well, if I think it would have been around 94, 95, right?
Okay.
I'm not sure if DVDs were around. I mean,
Yeah,
even
yeah, maybe.
CD-ROMs might have
Yeah, or
not been around or
VCDs.
been
Yeah,
very
those.
new technology at the time. So I definitely remember it in all and it wasn't the proper shops, obviously. An
Yeah.
official store couldn't. It was the
Mm-hmm.
dodgy kiosks
Mm-hmm.
everywhere that had those tapes, that sold porn in general.
Yeah.
And I remember being probably 10 or whatever, and you just walk around these kiosks, and the
They'll
the,
be
the
there.
Playboy and
Yeah,
the,
I
the porn
remember the
magazines
picture
are in
actually now
front
that you
for
mention it.
everyone to see. Yeah.
I remember the picture of the tape that they had, which was probably like a fake picture. Like obviously there wasn't a poster but the poster on the tapes, I remember which one they used, and it was her with the glasses.
Yeah.
And they
So
were.
so
Was it
the,
on a yacht? Was it on a yacht?
it
Yeah,
was on a yacht and
it
in a
was on a yacht.
car and
Yeah,
everywhere
yeah.
else. But one thing I remember from that time is I watched the sex tape and being like, I don't know, probably 11 or 12, I can't remember, but obviously it's a big deal when and you
Mm.
sneak around and you watch it. But then Pamela Anderson made a movie called Barbed Wire
Yeah,
or whatever.
I remember wearing all black
Yeah.
leather and obviously the barbed wire,
so
and she kicked ass.
exactly, but me being naive, right, I thought, oh, Pamela Anderson did another movie, so I thought it was another sex tape.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah,
watched it thinking, oh, we're going to see a lot of sex in this. And I was very
yeah.
disappointed. I mean, not only because it was a shit movie, but there was hardly any nudity.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, man, it's crazy as well. Pamela Anderson, all these Claudia Schiffer, Cindy Crawford, all these kind of hotties of back then were part of our puberty age, if that makes sense. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah.
And now if you see, like, they're not, I don't even hear them in anywhere, the news, etc. Maybe Pamela Anderson was probably the one that's still to this day a bit more relevant, but the others are definitely not relevant anymore. And weirdly enough, my older brother, it was more like Susan Sarandon, and because he was like that 5 years younger than me. So that was his, like, and all these kind of that age women now, and
Wait,
they're actually very relevant nowadays.
Susan Sarandon is older, isn't she?
I don't know, like maybe 5, 10 years older, maybe 10 years
Yeah, so you're
older.
talking about your older brother then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My older
Oh,
brother.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm saying that's what I mean. Like he had that. I'm like, nah, fuck Barbara Streisand. No offense, Barbara Streisand, if you're listening to this. But like we had the Claudia Schiffer, Sharon Stone, Basic Instinct.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I work with people who are probably 10 years or more younger than me.
Oh,
And I chat to them, and sometimes I would make a Pamela Anderson or a Cindy Crawford reference by
yeah.
saying, "Oh, who does she think she is, Pamela Anderson?" Meaning that, oh, does she think she's so pretty, or what? And they don't really get that reference,
No.
and it
But you
makes
know
me feel
what?
old.
Thank you for this. Now I know how to, like, whenever people ask me something, I'm just going to use references, especially like, we were talking last time and about, the younger people. So I'm just going to use those references that they don't recognize.
Yeah.
And then they'll eventually stop asking me about things.
Well, anyway, by the way, I apologize in advance, but I forgot to wish you a happy New Year. So happy New Year.
Yeah, you too, man. But yeah, the sex tape thing, you're right. It's an interesting word.
Yeah, but I mean, it's tape because it
Yeah.
must have come out in VHS, and
Mm.
if one of our listeners could tell us whether there was one before Pamela Anderson,
Mm.
but
Yeah,
that,
please
yeah.
tell us. I'm pretty sure there's like in the 70s, 80s. They got worse, by the way. Sex tapes got worse through the years, I realized. Because like the Tommy Lee one, it was innocent enough in the sense that, they're a couple, he's a rock star, she's like got big tits and a model. So like, everything was kind of understandable kind of thing. It wasn't, but then sex tapes got really crazy down the years, I think. There was a Screech one from Saved by the Bell.
Oh yeah. In
Threesome, I
fact,
think.
I actually read an article recently about Paris Hilton, and obviously
Oh yeah, she
she's
had one
famous
as
for a
well.
sex tape. But she was saying that uh, she was unlucky that her sex tape came out in that time period, because if a sex tape came out now, the guy
Mm.
who leaked it would be seen as evil and everything, and all the women would
Ah,
would stand behind her and say she's the victim, whereas back then she was vilified and seen as a slut and all that kind of stuff.
I tell you one thing. At the end of the day, all these sex tapes that happen, the one of the wrestling woman as well, etc.
China.
All not China, the English. There's a two. There's a China and there's a recent one. What's her name? There's a movie about her.
I don't
Uh,
know any of the current female wrestling
She's not current. She's like
athletes.
2003, 2004, that area. She's English. She's in the. I didn't know much about her, but then when they showed the videos, I'm like, oh yeah, that one. Can't remember her name, but there's a movie that they made, like an HBO film. I can't remember, but it's Fighting with My Parents. Now it's gonna drive me crazy. Do you mind if I look up her name
Look it
very
up.
quickly?
In the meantime, I'll
Yes.
try and cite all the sex tapes I know off the top of
Okay.
my head. So Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, Pamela Anderson, Gina Lee Nolan. I remember that.
Gina Lee Nolan. Who is
Yeah,
she?
she was in Baywatch, and she was in a lot of other stuff, but also I think one of those like
Yeah.
Xena Princess Warrior, but it wasn't Xena, it was something else. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, she's in Baywatch. Uh, who else? Who else had one? China from wrestling.
Obviously, Screech, we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good number. You know why you don't know any other ones? Not because there hasn't been more, but because the people that it had happened to are irrelevant to you knowing them, if that makes sense, you
Well,
know?
yeah. I mean, historically, sex tapes have made people famous rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Fighting with my family. Who is wrestling with my family? Fighting with her name is, Paige, her wrestling name.
Ah, yeah. Okay, I've heard of
Dark hair, yeah.
Paige. Yeah.
Yeah, when you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah, it's her. Um, yeah, I pretty much know those ones. There's one that I saw recently, and I was like, oh, surprise, because I watch a lot of American Sports Center and all that stuff for the basketball and for the American football and everything. and there was a news anchor that had a sex tape and a lot of leaked photos, and I was surprised because like that's a pretty like famous person, like in America at least.
Yeah. So confession time. In
Yes.
my younger days, I've been known to record myself while doing the dirty. So
Oh,
if we get famous enough and someone decides they want to hack me, they might be
they
in
can go
for
ahead.
some interesting,
Yeah.
media.
It's we need to start covering the webcam.
That's anyway. Speaking of wrestling,
Mm.
I was on Twitter the other day and Ken Shamrock tweeted, right?
Oh,
So he's back in wrestling. I think in AEW, but I'm not sure. That's a new
is
promotion.
AEW another promotion?
It's a new promotion. So
But
again,
it's not
I
like
don't know.
SmackDown, Raw, TNT,
No,
whatever it is.
separate.
Oh yeah.
Now there's TNA, but again, I don't know if TNA went out of business.
Okay.
But AEW has Jim Ross, um, I think Chris Jericho, but so some big names.
They have one of the Hart like grandkids.
Yeah,
You know.
okay. There was one guy who's like high flying, hard guy, and he was meant to be the next big
And
thing.
there's
I
a
forgot
girl
his
as
name.
well. And there's a girl, I think, a female.
Yeah. But anyway, so Ken Shamrock tweeted about some criticism that he got because he was saying his punches looked, telegraphed, and they weren't always landing in wrestling. And he was trying to make the point that, yeah, so what if they don't always land in wrestling? They don't always land in UFC. In fact, the majority of punches don't land in UFC. And, and so he thinks it's normal for punches not to land.
Yeah. So what he's saying is that, if anything, to add to the entertainment level of realism, he is not landing his wrestling punches, right?
I think he's trying to rationalize why he keeps missing those punches, because I don't think a wrestling audience expects punches to be missed.
In the entertainment business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I can also understand the whole point of you watching wrestling. I mean, as people watching wrestling, is that although they know it's entertainment, they know that, it's still kind of realistic to be a fight, you know what I mean? But actually, no, they're not looking for realism. They want people to climb up a ladder and walk in on the ring when unexpected, or be hit by a chair. So, yeah, maybe Shamrock is wrong on this one.
Yeah, I mean, also in MMA, when you miss your shots, people are moving out the way, right?
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the specific clip of Ken Shamrock's punches being missed, but I'm assuming he's hitting it. I mean, or he's going for that punch. The guy's not even moving, but it's just not landing.
Yeah.
Which is different from if Ken Shamrock's going for the punch, but the guy is moving out the way.
Yeah, exactly. And how old is he now, man? He must be like, what, 45? More?
Yeah, probably 40s or 50. He's got to be close to 50 now.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely on roids in the WWE.
Probably. I mean, but probably was.
Brock Lesnar style. After the... But yeah, nice. Yeah, that's... what was I going to say? I heard you told me you were going to the UFC next month, by the way, huh?
In 2 months' time, 21st
in 2 months'
of
time,
March.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, actually, well...
Next month, March.
Yeah, end of March. Okay, so...
Yeah.
5 weeks. Or no,
6.
7.
Yeah.
Very bad
Nice,
maths
man.
right there.
Nice. And yeah, I was going to tell you, by the way, in terms of the card, is every fight announced on that card, the London one?
No, not every, but the main event is now announced. So it's Tyron Woodley versus Leon Edwards. That should be a good fight.
Really good fight.
I think originally it was meant to be Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till, or at least they were speculating about that. But then Robert Whittaker withdrew because his daughter, I think, is sick, and he has to give her some bone marrow. So, he's taking some time off for that. But there is something I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, would she make it though, just like with that, whatever it's doing, or is her condition like still questionable whether it will?
I don't know the details of the condition, but I think most bone marrow
Surgery.
surgeries
Yeah,
are fine,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
people survive. But there is one thing that stood out for me, and I was listening to a Dana White interview, and he said, "Yeah, Robert Whittaker's having to take some time off to give his daughter bone marrow," and he used the word that Robert Whittaker is one of the nicest guys and he's the most selfless guy, right?
Mm.
And I took issue with that.
Oh,
Be-
selfless. Why?
yeah, because I don't agree that it's a selfless thing. If you have a daughter,
Oh
right,
yeah,
and you love her
like
so much, it's not
you don't think
selfless. It's
twice.
like you want your
It's
daughter.
like
It's a selfish thing. Your daughter means
it's
so.
almost like a self-defense reaction of yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, there's no way you think that, like, you know what? Like it's like, again, classic old Chris Rock joke. Uh, you know, I take care of my kids. And it's like, you're supposed to take care of your kids. Don't make it seem like I have never been to jail. You're not supposed to go to jail.
Well, sort
I
of.
got a job. Great. You're supposed to have a job. It's the same. You're supposed to take care of your daughter. It's not like,
Well, not
but
necessarily that
I'm
you're
sure he
supposed to
meant it.
take care of her, but I'm thinking more like when you're thinking of being selfish, you're thinking, what
Mhm.
do I value? What's important to me? And I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to pursue that. And
yeah,
his daughter obviously is important to him, so
yeah,
he needs to do anything he can to
of
keep her
course.
alive.
Yeah,
If he was going to be selfless, he would donate his bone marrow to some complete random stranger instead of his daughter, because then
yeah,
he's really not thinking about himself.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
And
But
that annoys me because people use the word selfish and selfless completely wrong
all the time.
95% of the time.
It's like, don't you hate when people use the word literally wrong in the UK, especially?
Yeah, I mean,
I hate it. It pisses me off so much.
there's
Uh,
there's lots of things people say incorrectly, like when they say there's no other alternative.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
other already means an alternative. It's either
yeah.
there's no alternative
Or
or
there is an
yeah.
alternative. Yeah, there's not the. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Um, but yeah, it's the English language for you. The other day my brother told me something in French, and I'm like, I was telling Khalid, what's the opposite of avant-garde? You know, the word avant-garde when you describe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Après
Uh,
garde.
and then he goes to me, uh, no, that's exactly what I thought. Avant-garde, après, whatever. And he said
Yeah.
something like. Um, En avant, attack, like guard is,
Okay, yeah,
attack,
yeah.
right? And en avant. And I said en avant, but avant is back. And he's like, but en avant is forward, like go ahead. And I realized, oh my God, the word like après is also after, so it works with après. But the point is, French use avant as back and forward, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah,
By
yeah.
fish, like, what a stupid language. Why?
Well, you're
Yeah,
French. I don't know the intricacies of the language.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna tell you, by the way, I don't know if you've been getting this, but like I kind of stopped. I don't. I'm never on Facebook, very rarely. But whenever, it's only for birthdays that I'm actually on there. It's almost like I got to do my birthday responsibility and wish someone happy birthday on Facebook. But anyways, you know what? And a few months ago, I realized there were loads of these. Like, if I search something on Amazon, it'd be directly shown on my Facebook. Hey, do you want to buy this whatever box, or do you want to buy
Cookies.
whatever cookies?
Yeah.
And every single time, man, and it came to the point where I said, you know what, I need to turn that shit off. It's really annoying me. Like I don't want people to just, locate my kind of searches and then make their adverts according to everything I want to buy or spend money on, etc. So I turned that stuff off. I forgot what it's called. You know better. You're the
Yeah,
IT
the
guy.
cookies that I was
The
talking about, right?
cookies. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I turned the cookies off and a bunch of stuff, and then the adverts started flowing. But man, it's been like an adventure of ads since then. You know what I mean? Like the ads just became so much more like we don't know what Mok likes, so let's just throw a bunch of things until we get one that he clicks on. So these wish ads, they're the most popular ones that come on Facebook. They're always the most random thing in the world, man. They've tried to sell me medication from China. Like there was one called Deep Throat, and it's anesthetic spray. Anesthetic spray, it's for your
Basically,
throat,
they know what you like.
but it's like deep throat. And then they send us, they advertise those like underwear, where you have like a little pocket uh, at the front
Yeah,
and
okay.
like a thong at the back, or one with a little sort of not even a button, but more like a door, a zip in your, like all the sexy, weird underwear, basically, and for women and men. So yeah, I've been getting this since I turned it off, and now it's like I'm bored of seeing like which one is which one is the better of both evils, like cookies on with your, all the searches being like all the ads being related to your searches, or the fact that they're not doing that but you're getting all that shit instead.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea how all that works, but yeah, it's interesting to know that they start throwing random stuff. I guess
Yeah,
they do
yeah,
want you to just click, so they'll throw everything at you.
yeah. That's where I'm at. um yeah, it's random. And you know what, by the way, did you ever use a website called Bazaraki when you lived in Cyprus?
I've heard of it. Well, you can buy stuff, like used stuff, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a similar one in Malta, and that one is just like the least controlled, filtered. What you can, it's like Craigslist and all those,
Yeah, Gumtree in the
Gumtree.
UK.
But man, it's really not controlled. You can tell there's someone made the website and just left it. It's like it's okay. You guys do whatever you want. Make accounts, post things, sell it between you two. And it's the most unfiltered thing. Like there's been people selling kids on there, just
Oh,
like €4, call me with a number and like picture of the kids. There's been people selling the weirdest animals, dead animals that got run over.
Ah,
Yeah, like it's insane. And it feels like I don't know. I can't believe that website is still on there. If there's ever any funny articles, I'll send them on that group we have, the Ricardo Milos one. Ricardo Milos, if you're listening, we're big fans.
yeah, definitely, 100%. Hopefully, we get him on the podcast one day.
Oh man, I'd love that.
And just for our listeners, if you've never heard of Ricardo Milos, Google him. You won't regret it. Um, but yeah, speaking of children on being sold, you reminded me of, or you made me think of priests.
Oh.
And another thing I was thinking about, which is, we know that there's a high percentage of priests who are pedophiles, right?
Hmm. I mean,
I
yeah,
don't
there
know.
is.
I don't know what the percentage is. I mean,
Hmm.
it's even if there's one priest, that's too many. But
Hmm.
anyway, um, I was just thinking whether there's statistically the same amount of pedophiles in the priest profession as in any other profession,
Hmm.
or whether and we just hear about the priest thing more because they're meant to be
More
held to a
shocking.
higher moral
That's
standard.
good.
They're like a
Yeah,
noble
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
or whether it's something inherent in being a priest where you can't have sex that drives you to become a pedophile. But then why wouldn't it just drive you to be like a pervert? Why pedophile?
Yeah, that's 100% true. You have to understand as well that priests, with choir boys and all that, priests have probably the fact that number one, they're not obviously they don't have they can't have any sexual encounters and all that. The fact that they hang around with a lot of younger people, and the fact that there's a certain innocence that stays. Let's face it, if you've never had sex in your life, if you've never oh, if there's a okay, yeah, if you've never had sex in your life, if you never, etc., there's always going to be a part of you that stays like sort of that hasn't grown, and a lot of time you find that in pedophile. Of course, there's the past of abuse and all that, but a lot of the time you find it. So maybe that's probably why they go for children. I don't know.
Well, I mean, at what age do you decide you want to be a priest? And actually, I don't know the process of applying or becoming a priest. Is it something you choose when you're like 10, or you?
No, it depends. But not all priests are pedophiles. So there's people that probably priested it out after they've done all their crazy, sex escapades, and then they were ready to like, I'm done with sex. I have every single STD I can fucking name. That's it. I'm happy to be a priest and cut the schlump.
Oh yeah, and there's also
And then there's those who've never done it, and then maybe they have a bit of a,
yeah, but then there's also the guys who become priests because it's a very lucrative profession. In some countries, especially in Cyprus, they make lots of money. They drive Mercedes.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And you always have a home. That's the advantage of being a priest, I suppose.
yeah.
Like what I always found weird is the connection with people and priests. Like, for example, in Cyprus, there was a big thing about like, the priests used to go to the people's houses and all that. I always found that a bit like weird. I remember once going to a Cypriot friend of mine's house, and there was a big priest there with a big beard, the archbishop, like not an archbishop, but he had like a super outfit,
One of the big daddies.
Big and like his mom was really old, that guy, and the priest was there, and before he left, he kissed the priest on the cheek, and he said, "Okay, let's go play football." And I'm like, "Is he your dad?" And he's like, "No, no, no, no. It's just the priest of my village." I'm like, "Oh, just."
Well, I mean, that in Cyprus, just when the league starts, the football league,
Mm.
they get every club has like a ceremony where they bring in a priest and he kind of blesses the club for
Mhm.
the coming season.
Yeah,
It's a thing. Every club does it.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
And even though one club wins it, you know what I mean? Like, they probably fire the priest afterwards.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
know.
they're like, you weren't good enough. Your connection with the guy upstairs isn't good enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? Also, by the way, thinking about it now, in terms of like the famous pedophiles, Jacques Dutroux, all Dutroux, I can't remember, and a bunch of other ones. The ones that I can recall in my head now, I don't know their names, but like from stories or documentaries, most of them weren't priests.
No, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know anyone or
Yeah,
anything. I just, I hear it in the news. So
yeah. I think most of them probably unemployed. They paid their mortgage, they built that basement. No, but yeah, nice.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we'll call it.
Yeah.
I think we put a downer on our listeners. They're gonna go, question their local priest now, I think.
Probably. Um, but yeah, thank you guys for listening. It was
Yeah.
lots of fun.
Until next time.